Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a collage video for you because I want to get rid of all these paper scraps. I have them left over from a class I did last weekend from Laura Horn, and these small pieces of paper I don't want to hoard for weeks. I just want to get rid of them. And I decided to make 3 pages in my mini art journals. These are just cheap ring-bound journals. This is a super cheap sketchbook from the Action Store, and the other 2 I have here are from Gerstaecker. I have glued down already 1 piece of paper. Here I started a second one because the first one was already full. And I have already glued down 1 piece of paper, and this was a leftover paint paper. I used to use these kind of papers to just put on paint, clean my brushes, stamp my stamps clean, and these make great collage papers. And that's all I have done to these spreads. The video might be a bit strange because I recorded this while I was talking, but in German, so this will be up on my German YouTube channel. It's also a little bit longer because I talked a little bit more, and I will cut out these parts here in the video where I seem to do nothing on the screen. I will start with this bigger journal. This is, as I said, from the Action Store. It has super cheap paper in it, and that's why I love it, because I am not afraid to ruin anything in it. And if I don't like a page, I would just tear it out and throw it away. And what I also like about these ring-bound journals is that you can tear out the papers, and then if you have a little nice piece, you can frame it or use it as a little gift. I am using my Tombow glue stick to adhere all my papers. I do this usually in my art journal because this is nothing that has to be secured, and a glue stick works totally fine. And with this one, I never had a piece falling off. This paper is a piece of rice paper. It's a pretty old one. I made this, I think, about a year ago. And it is printed with the jelly plate, and then I stamped on it with one of the pencil mark stamps. I am working intuitively when I adhere the papers. I just lay something down and see if it fits, and as I said, there is no pressure to make some good artwork. It's just for fun and to relax. And after moving our shop, which is still going on and which is still a bit stressful, I need some art in between. You will also see that we have not just a new shop, we also have a new blog. I have just started it yesterday, and I will make a post on our old blog to the new one. It is integrated in our shop, and it's also a bit more comfortable for my design team, as the editor is a bit more easy than on our previous blog. I decided to add some more of a colorful paper to the spread because it was a bit boring and flat. But as I said, I will work intuitively. I will not talk that much in between the process, just if there is something important to say. I already have some stamped images here from the weekend, and I stamped those with acrylic paints onto the collage papers. I really love to use acrylic paints for stamping my main images because it gives you a much more artsy look, and every image looks a bit different, almost like as it was painted. And it also has some more benefits. If you make some artwork that you want to prime with a spray varnish, then sometimes stamping ink reacts with these kind of sprays. And if you're using acrylics, you will not have that problem. Another reason is that it is usually light fast, depending on the brand you are using. and it also gives you a little bit of a dimension of your stamped image, which I really like. Something else I might want to use for these collages are some prepared collage ephemera pieces I made a while ago with my sketchy leaves and also the pencil mark stamps. I just made some lovely watercolor backgrounds and then I stamped and embossed the images onto these backgrounds and cut all these pieces out so I have them ready to go on some collage work or greeting cards. I'm setting the bigger journal aside and I am now working in one of the smaller ones. This process is really enjoyable because you have some time for paints to dry in case you have something wet on it, and in the meantime you can work on another page. And that's also something I learned. Well, I do this all the time, but in Laura's class she did a big series of 8 paintings or collages, and I never did such a big bunch of work at the same time. But I really enjoyed that, and it was so much fun that I did it again the day after, and I made 12 pieces, and it was so much fun, and I explored so many new ideas just by playing with the materials, with the paints and the paper. I have shared all these paintings on my Instagram page in the Reels section. For this spread, I also wanted to have some more color on it, so I am cutting out these circular shapes, and I really like how they look on this page. I always try to use a odd number because usually it looks a bit better than an even number. I really like that paper on the other pages, so I decided I will use this on the third one as well. I want to cover up that white space a little bit because it's not the prettiest white, it's a bit dirty and it's too much. I just think about the composition, and I would never place that piece of paper directly in the middle of the page. And here I decided to put it into the middle of the white area, and I think that was the best fit. As always, I will have a blog post for this spread on my website, and I will link this up in the video description, and there you will find some close-up images. I will now cut off the edges of each of the pages, so the whole composition looks a bit different then, and usually it looks better, and then it's easier to see how I will keep on working on these pages. Sometimes I leave overlapping edges, especially if they are not too big, and sometimes I think it looks good if you have a little bit of a torn edge overlapping. I now want to stamp something to the right side of this spread to bring that Payne's gray color that looks almost black back into the spread on this area. And I will stamp with acrylic paints so you can see how I'm doing it. And I will use just a simple stripe stamp from the pencil mark set. I will list all the stamp sets I have used in the video description. The paint I'm using is a vinyl paint. It's a bit different than acrylics because it dries completely matte, almost like a acrylic gouache, and that's the reason why I bought these paints, because I wanted to use them as a kind of a replacement for acrylic gouache, because acrylic gouache is super expensive and these vinyl paints are not that expensive. And in my sketchbook, I usually don't use much water with the gouache. I try to have a good coverage. And there, I thought these paints come in handy. And because of their finish, the pages don't stick together afterwards. So that's a big bonus. And that's also great for art journaling, because you don't want to have your pages stuck together. And to stamp with it, I just use a little bit on my leftover piece of paper, and I dip the stamp into it just like with a stamp pad. What's really important when you stamp with acrylics, you have to make sure to clean your stamps. I would recommend do this immediately with a baby wipe and a spray bottle with water, or you can lay it into water until you have time to clean it. But the paint will dry underwater too, just not in the same way as it is with air, but it will just stick more to the stamp as if you just remove it immediately, but it will work. And in case you you forget a stamp with acrylic paint, you can use alcohol to remove that, so you will get it clean again. I let this paint dry on the other page, and here I also want to do some stamping, and I will try to use the acrylic paint with this sew-in border. It's not the perfect image to stamp with acrylics because it's pretty detailed and you maybe want it detailed and not messy, but I thought as the paint is already out there, I just will use this one, and I think it works pretty nice. On this spread, I also wanted to do some stamping just with a ticket stamp from the Mix It Up stamp set to bring in some interesting texture. As the paint was already dry, I decided to just use that StazOn ink pad here. Stamping over acrylics works best with StazOn, and to make sure to get a good stamp impression, always re-ink your stamping pads, because if there is not enough ink in there, you will not get a good stamp impression. That's the first thing to do if you have the feeling your stamping looks not saturated and good. I wanted to have more of this orangey pink colors on the page, not only these 3 dots I have adhered, and so I'm picking Neocolor crayons to just make some scribbly marks on the page. I have cut out the bee from our Inky Friends, and this was also stamped to one of the collage papers that had the same colors as my circles with the vinyl paint. And I cut it out, and I think it fits perfectly on this background. With this page, I wanted to bring in some white because there is nothing on it to just keep the values on a big range. And I'm using white acrylic ink. And I thought I maybe will draw with a twig. I usually use this one with drawing ink, and it's much more fluid than the acrylic ink, and it works better. It does not work really good with this acrylic ink. It's also the one from Schminke, which is thicker than the one from Liquitex, and that might be the reason. But I just keep on doing it because I really like the marks. It is a bit difficult to control a twig, and that gives me a lot of unexpected marks, and that I think looked pretty nice on this spread. I use a wet brush and just blend in the right side of that white ink, and I really like that. While the first page is drying, I will finish up this one. Well, not really finish it up, but I will keep on working on it. And I think it's a bit boring, and I wasn't sure what to add. So I just decided to go in with some Liquitex acrylic ink and paint over some parts of the page. As I said in the beginning, this is all about exploring and playing. And if you don't like it, you can either just turn to the next page or tear it out and throw it away. I let that background dry, and I want to add in some color. And I decided to use something that has a little bit of a yellowish tone, because some of the papers have some yellow sprinkles in them, light yellow sprinkles. And here I just used the Neo color, and I'm mixing it with an ivory acrylic ink, and I just make some splatters with it all over my page, and also a little bit of some brush marks. I'm doing a bit too much of these extra marks, I feel, but that's the great thing about wet paint. You can just remove it with a baby wipe. And I also have stamped with waterproof acrylic paint, and yeah, it's no problem to go over it and remove some of it. I will set this aside to dry, and in the meantime, the bigger page is also dry and I can keep on working on it. And I decided to do some more stamping, and I'm picking the bigger number stamp from the mixed media, no, not mixed media, from the Mix It Up stamp set. I think the bigger is on the Mix It Up, I think on the number 1, and the smaller is on the mixed media marks. Before I go in with stamping, I just add some splatters with that paint because it was still on my desk. I'm also using StazOn here. You have to be a bit careful with the rice paper when you stamp on it, and it is a very rough paper, and the photopolymer stamps are often pretty sticky, and that might tear the rice paper. So it's very important that your ink is really wet and you have a lot of ink on your stamp to avoid the stickiness. I'm missing something on the left area here, and I think I want to have not something black on there, but something in the same color as this peachy tones. And I will just mix some of the vinyl paints to stamp with them. And that's also a point why I like stamping with acrylics. You can mix every color you want and you can stamp lighter colors over darker areas. As I have this paint already here, I decided to stamp a little bit of it to the other spread. The stamped circles are dry. I have cleaned my stamp, of course, and here I just paint in these circles with a white Posca pen. I think the white matches the whole page perfectly. To finish up this page, I will just glue down my main image, and I decided to pick this one, and I also cut out some words that I felt are nice, and I will glue these down off camera, and I will then show you the photos at the end of the video, because just gluing down pieces is a little bit boring. I do the same with the other pages. Here I picked that piece from the journal words. No, it's not from the journal words. It's a word. I think the word comes with the vintage script stamp, and I embossed it in white onto black cardstock, and I picked that sketchy leaf because the colors were perfect. And before I glue everything down, I just color in these circles, just like on the other page. And the third page is almost finished. I just decided to make a sentiment for it because I felt that is perfect for that bumblebee, and I will glue this down. Yeah, I will now show you the photos of the finished spreads. You will also find them over on my blog. And I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. Bye!